Breaking through 3 Kuomintang blockades, the Central Red Army reached the Xiangjiang River region. Kuomintang chief Chiang Kai-shek mobilized its armies and nearby warlords, deploying 25 divisions of more than 400,000 troops. His plan was to surround and wipe out the Red Army. It was a tough test for the leading forces of the Central Red Army. They fought for 5 days and nights, and the last day was the bloodiest of all. Gunfire and cries of combat echoed across the river. Under heavy bombardment, several divisions sacrificed themselves to cover the main forces. The Red Army finally made their way across the Xiangjiang River. The battle saw the heaviest losses of the Red Army during the Long March. The main forces lost over half of their numbers, from 86,000 to just 30,000. A life and death turning point came soon after at a conference in the city of Zunyi. Its main agenda was to examine the Communist Party's failure in the campaign against the Kuomintang. The party decided to unite under Mao Zedong. Mao Zedong's strategy and tactics were put into practice. The 4 river crossings of the Battle of the Chishui River are a stirring episode. For the first crossing, Mao ordered the army to move westward to avoid the reinforcements of the approaching Kuomintang army. On learning that Chiang Kai-shek sent more troops to the Red Army's flanks, Mao ordered the troops to turn eastward to cross the Chishui again, and they seized Zunyi. Following the victory, the Red Army crossed the Chishui for a 3rd time, pretending to march northward to cross the Yangtze River. Chiang Kai-shek fell for it. Mao ordered the main army to take a sharp turn towards the Chishui for a 4th time. It was the first major battle commanded by Mao during the Long March, and it's regarded as one of the most representative battles under his command. The surprise crossing allowed the Red Army to break through the encirclement of 400,000 enemies and eventually survive the Kuomintang's crackdown. To cross the Dadu River, the Red Army had to quickly pass the Luding Bridge. The 4th Regiment led the way. They marched 120 kilometers in less than 24 hours and reached the bridge at dawn. After seizing the west end of the Luding Bridge, they deployed firepower to block the road along the river where enemy reinforcements were coming. The bridge consisted of 13 heavy iron chains with a span of some 100 meters. Thick wooden boards were lashed over the chains. By the time the Red Army arrived, most of the planks had been removed, leaving the iron chains swinging in the wind. In the afternoon, the Red Army sent over 20 elite troops to seize the bridge. They were armed with submachine guns, sabers, and grenades, the best of their weapons. All at once, heavy guns opened fire on the opposite bank. The elite troops grasped the iron chains and pulled themselves forward. Other soldiers followed, replacing the wooden planks for the rest of the troops. The enemy attempted to hold the Red Army's advance by concentrating heavy fire, but the Red Army soldiers rushed into the flames and took the bridgehead on the east bank. After 2 hours, the Red Army crossed the Dadu River. It crushed Chiang Kai-shek's campaign with the help of natural barriers. Crossing snow-covered mountains was one of the toughest tasks during the Long March. There were no human enemies. The challenge was nature. Most of these mountains were 4,000 meters above sea level, covered with ice and snow all year round. The Red Army faced freezing temperatures, a lack of oxygen, and the risk of snow blindness. Most of the soldiers came from the south. They had no shoes and only 2 layers of thin clothing. Some sick soldiers failed to get up once they sat down, and some slower ones died before reaching the mountain top. Later on, the Red Army arrived in the Maoergai area. The beauty of the grassland belied the danger. The weather was unpredictable. Snow and hailstorms were frequent. There were no roads, and heavy fog often disoriented the troops. The swamp posed a constant threat, which could swallow the unwary at any moment. And when night fell, a lack of food often compounded their difficulties. In the grassland region, there wasn't enough grain to feed the army. The troops had collected their rations and ate everything available. The rear guard had to eat grass and boil their belts and shoes. But that didn't stop the Red Army from marching to their destination. In 1935, Mao's army was the first of the communist armies to reach Shanxi province. They joined with local communist forces. And 1 year later, the 4th Red Army and the 2nd Red Army arrived. The union of the three armies on October 22nd marked the end of the Long March. The Long March took the Red Army through more than 10 provinces, over 18 mountains, and across 24 rivers, covering 12,500 kilometers. The strategic retreat was a prelude to the party's final victory and the birth of New China.